Welcome. This is the Drupal usability meeting for November 28th, 2025. I'm Benji Fisher, sharing my screen and moderating, and also present are Sahil Sharma and Simo Helston. Um, so last week, towards the end of the meeting, we returned to this issue, which for the sake of the recording is 2704931. Provide Drupal root path on the file system admin form. Um, and we've already looked at it at a couple of meetings in August and September, and there have been some changes since the last time we reviewed it. And Gareth Alexander has rejoined the meeting. Are you still having trouble with your Wi-Fi?
I am, yeah, but it's on my laptop, so that's why I'm on the phone. I don't know why the phone cut out. Sorry.
Okay. Um, So let's see. I have checked out the feature branch and installed this site and shared it via ngrok. I'll paste the link into the Zoom chat. Um, and you can log in as usual, admin, and no password manager. I do not want to save that password. Um, and if you visit configuration media file system, this issue adds this section at the top. It says what the root directory of the Drupal installation is. I'm running on DDEV, so var www/html is the absolute system path on the DDEV container, not on my local machine. Um, and then it adds the absolute path for most of the um, paths that are specified in settings.php. So I think this format of adding a separate line, labeling it absolute path, I think that's new since the last time we reviewed the issue. Um, Before I go any further, any questions or are people familiar with this admin page?
I'm aware of it.
Okay. Um, so I forget what we were saying about this at the end of the last meeting. Um, I think someone asked, is there any situation where you're likely to be copying and pasting this path? And I think the answer was no, or at least we didn't think of any use cases. For example, if you're editing, this is the Umami demo profile. So if you're editing a piece of content node, um, or I suppose what I really want to do is edit a media item. If you're editing a media item, then there's a link here, which just for the sake of illustration, I will copy the link and just have a place to paste it. I guess I'll go back and edit some article just so you can see what I've copied. Um, so there I get, um, I guess that's the URL, not the file path. So the URL doesn't necessarily know what the actual file path is. Um, but this is something you're more likely to copy and paste. I guess if you're logged into the server and you want to search for a file or list a directory, um, it might be helpful to be able to copy and paste this, but that's something that doesn't come up very often in my experience. So I guess the first question um, is it helpful to know the absolute path, or should we just leave it off? Any ideas, opinions?
Recording in progress.
I think I would be happy just to leave it off.
I mean, it's the old advice for user interfaces that less is more. I guess that's more general than just user interfaces. Um, Simo asks maybe documentation, some Confluence or maybe testing guide for PR is a copy paste. Um, so I guess you're thinking of internal documentation within a team of where to find files, and that's the sort of thing that could be on Confluence or a testing guide. Um,
Yeah, that kind of things. It's not very kind of difficult to find it elsewhere. And there, I think absolute path is not so relevant. That file just public, like the relative path, maybe. But so there are cases where people need to know, but it's not usually very often.
so for some of these, if I decide I do need the path, it's sort of a two-step process. I copy the root directory and I'll go over here where I have this text field open. I can paste it in there and then put in these separating slash, and then I can copy this. So if it's something that doesn't come up very often, then this is good enough. Um, it's a little bit different when I'm when I have files up a directory. So we have the slash dot dot. And you know, for many purposes, like if I'm trying to list the files in that directory and I'm logged into the server, that's probably good enough. Um, if you want to simplify it, you can get rid of the dot dot and the parent directory. Um, and that's what the current pull request does for us. It says var dub slash private underscore files. Um, so so maybe what we should do here is just ask a question on the issue and say, okay, it's useful to have the root directory listed at the top of the page, um, but give some justification for adding all this additional information elsewhere on the page.
How is that marked up? Because it does look smaller than I could understand, for example, the public file system path and then having an absolute file system path, in the same weight and give it, the 2 bits. And I suppose the application root directory is there. Hmm. Is the absolute path there? Is that marked up like the help text below it?
Um, no, it's I think I looked at this last week.
Oh,
Um,
sorry.
that's okay. But it has a small tag around the whole line.
So
And
that's
then,
markup for display purposes.
yes, it's
Uh,
using
and it's
B
bold as
tags,
well. Okay.
a B tag and an M tag. Well, I guess the M tag comes from the translation.
Emphasis, or maybe.
Well, that's from the translation function,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? Right. This is a placeholder. It's filling in this thing which we get
Yeah.
from PHP code into a translatable string. Um, but yeah, making it small and using the bold tag, those are not best practices for markup. Um,
I've just taken a phone call. It was the 80s. They want their markup back. Hmm.
80s? Did we
Hmm.
even have a World Wide Web in the 80s? It certainly
No.
wasn't very popular until the 90s.
No, the World Wide Web was invented later. We just had various nets.
Um,
Okay, the 90s. It's just Stranger Things is back on, so I've just got my head in the 80s. Anyway, it was a joke.
yes, and the quip is something we've heard in other contexts, and like 80s is more typical. Anyway,
Yeah, maybe as you said, sorry, I derailed the conversation a wee bit. Maybe just asking for some justification is valid and needed. It does seem to add a lot of, you know, stuff to the page that maybe isn't that useful.
So let's at least read through the issue description and see if it already answers that question. The page contains info about the file system, but has missing information regarding the application root folder. Proposed resolution is introduce a description of the application root and add in the info for relative paths with resolved absolute paths.
I think having a maybe the application root is valid. It might be useful to be able to see that somewhere. Then I'm not sure about the absolute paths after every other.
Yeah, so that's what I was saying, that it's fine to add this at the top of the page. The question is how useful these lines are.
And I think the fact that you double click stuff and it actually includes the absolute path when you double click it as well doesn't help.
It's actually a triple click, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So I could understand it if it triple clicked and it stopped at the var www, perhaps the way that the site's the default files does, and even the application root, you can highlight that, but when you triple click the
Right.
absolute path, you get the absolute path colon, so you're going to have to edit the copy anyway.
Either that or
So
you have to be a little more careful clicking and dragging in
yeah,
order to select it.
I think we need justification for adding the absolute paths in, and then we probably need to push back on the markup and the actual implementation of that, so that if we did decide it was going to be added, it would need to be better usability of being able to actually copy that.
Right. So absolute path should be a label, assuming that you want it to look like this. Absolute path should be a label for an inline element, or an inline label for this element.
I think so, yeah.
I think it's wasn't even same paragraph with that relative path there, so it was just small. Then it was there was one part bold and one part emphasized, so it wasn't too much HTML there.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
So I think it was it a part of the same. Uh, is that small? Is that a block element, or is it just part of that? It just after a line break, part of the same text.
Yeah, there's a break element and then a small element, which is not block, it's inline.
Yeah. So it looks a bit bad for semantics.
Right. So so the text public file system path is a label. Um,
I'm going to paste into the chat the markup that's in there. Well, just in the merge requests so we can see it at initial line break BR tag with a forward slash. So that's HTML5, isn't it? Small b absolute path colon close b absolute small close. line 227. So, oh, yeah. So I think you're right. The absolute value that's there, that seems, that comes from this resolve absolute path. And the emphasis comes from the translation, you're right.
Interesting. So anyway, yes, translation and the percent absolute, that's what creates the M tag. So no complaints about that, but the overall effect, uh,
Then I'm just wondering, should the path be put through translation? Code
um,
cleanup, maybe, but because if one of your paths was, you wouldn't want any of those directories to be translated, would you?
no, it's not translated.
All right,
That's
okay. Oh,
yeah,
then
the string gets translated,
transformed.
but after the translation, the tokens get substituted.
Hmm. Okay, yes.
So you get the absolute and initial paths. Oh yeah, one thing I was wondering about in my installation, um, I chose the temporary directory to be a relative path as well, and the absolute path shows up in this screenshot. This is the before screenshot. Here's the after screenshot. Um, it only shows /temp. So there is logic in there that if the configured path is an absolute path like /temp, then it doesn't bother to add the absolute path. So that's reasonable. But but again, the main question is how useful is it to have all of these absolute paths in the first place?
Hmm. I wonder if that screenshot was taken before the code was actually finished, because it looks like there isn't.
No, I think this is a recent screenshot. Why do you?
Because I'm seeing the file temporary path should be displaying the. You have a version of this locally, don't you? And
Yes.
I wonder if you changed it to /temp in the file system, would it then remove the absolute path?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. And the code snippet we were looking at shows how that's implemented. Um, so here I can, you won't be able to see it, but if I edit site's default settings, uh, and now Zoom is getting in the way of my terminal window. Here we go. Uh, okay. What is going on here? Zoom is making my life difficult. Okay, so I changed the configuration to just slash temp, which is the usual thing. And if I reload this page, it no
Okay.
longer repeats that. So it only shows the absolute path if it's different from the configured path.
Okay. Yeah.
And that does make sense.
Mhm. Yeah, because that is the absolute path. There's no point in double displaying it.
All right, so I will ask that question on the issue unless someone else wants to post that comment. Um, you know, justify adding these lines. And if you do want to keep it, then use more semantic markup. Anything more to say on this issue?
I think that having it bold on the same, like starting at the same uh, level with the main label, it kind of makes it a bit more difficult to scan. So it kind of, if you scan the bolded text, trying to find where is the kind of type of path I'm trying to find. So scanning the labels is more difficult with the bold in the place where it is kind of. So if it wouldn't be bold, then it wouldn't bother. But it's kind of a mixing visually with the public file system path and public file-based URL. So it kind of blocks the line of sight if you're trying to scan the where is your that path you are trying to find. So I don't like it being bold, so because it makes it harder to read in my mind.
Okay, so if you're trying to scan the page and you want to look at these primary labels, public file system path, public file base URL, optimized assets file system path, and so on, then having additional bold elements left justified gets in the way of that scanning.
Yes.
Um, and making the markup more semantic, making this a label, for example, would not improve that. It would be just as bad. On the other hand, um, let's see if we can do this. If I make this an inline label, um, oh, what is the markup for an inline label? Or what's the CSS class for an inline label? Maybe it's one of those. No, my guess was wrong. Um, oh, there's some way. Oh, here we go. This looks like an inline label. Oh, it's at the div level. Um,
Container inline.
What happens if we add container inline there? So if we made both of them inline labels, um, that maybe makes it easier to scan. What do you think, Simo?
Is there in a similar way to click here, kind of labeling on buttons and things? Is there having a lot of absolute paths kind of floating around, but not associating them with the optimized asset? No, no, maybe I'm overthinking this. Is absolute path on its own?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
Just a label, absolute path, kind of floats, and it's not actually saying what the absolute path is for. So I'm wondering if, but like I said, I might be overthinking this. I know that if you have um, clickable elements that they're actually tagged up with um, a hrefs, then the click here, for example, can become just a list of click here, click here, click here without any reference. But I think this is probably okay because it's all inside the div, isn't it? So the label, do we need a label for? Yeah.
There is actually an empty element in between for a screen reader, but that's going into a bit of a detail.
We just wondered if we need an ARIA thing on that absolute path label. It just says absolute path. So do we need it to say optimized assets, file system, absolute path?
So this label, optimized file system path, has a for attribute.
Mm-hmm.
So probably if we turn absolute path into a label, we should add a for attribute there as well.
Yeah. I'm just wondering about the actual label itself, just the fact that it's absolute path. And if you scroll down a wee bit underneath the private file system, you'll have a label of absolute path. And then if you scroll down, you might get another absolute path.
Well,
You don't,
scroll up,
because this, yeah, you'll get one under the temporary file if it's not already an absolute path.
right?
But yeah, I don't know if there's a way to associate the fact that there's, the private file system, and then you have relative path, absolute path.
Um,
It might, yeah, like I said, I might be overthinking this.
I think the for attribute on a label helps with accessibility. Not sure about that, but I think
Actually,
that. Go ahead.
I think we should open accessibility issue from this follow-up because it looks like there is no ID for that for. So that for points to non-existing. Oh no, it doesn't. No, it points to the div label for the div. Yes. Okay. Sorry. So it's yeah. So but it would be the same label for that absolute path and the relative path there. Yeah.
The triple click at this point selects the whole line, which is a disadvantage. So,
Mm.
okay, I think that we can summarize the discussion that if we do want to add this information, then there are a lot of challenges to the markup. Like it's awkward to have two labels inside the same div. If we put it outside the div, then the description for that div is going to be separating the configured path from the absolute path. Um, so it will take a lot of work, but maybe we shouldn't work that hard until we decide that we actually want the absolute path. So the first question is, how useful is it to have this? And then if we decide that it is useful, then we can consider what the markup should be.
Good idea.
If we want to, yeah, if we want to think into the future or more complex and wild ideas, we could have kind of in some cases there are these kind of buttons where you can click to copy the path or click to copy it as absolute path. So that's something that operating system level maybe has. So it just so that's kind of going making it more complex to have some kind of a button where you can copy the absolute path or something like that. Or even something that you could have a button to display it as absolute path so that you could toggle it how it's shown, but that's out of scope for this one maybe. But having something like a small button that could have this work as a show the absolute path, and then it would display the path as absolute path.
Okay, so maybe some form control at the top of the page, toggle switch to either show or hide the absolute path. But again, before solving the problem, we should decide whether there really is a problem. Like the simplest solution is just to get rid of these lines. And if we do that, then we don't have to think about what the markup looks like, and we don't need to think about adding toggles or anything. If we decide that there is a use for these, then we can continue the discussion.
Good idea.
Okay, I get a thumbs up from Simo. Um, so again, I'm happy to leave a comment on the issue asking about that, unless someone else wants to. Okay, we have just about 15 minutes left in the hour. And again, if someone has an issue that they'd like to bring up, this would be a good time to raise it. And if not, this is searching for issues that are either needs review or RTBC and have the needs usability review tag. This is the one we talked about last week. So let's just have a look at this issue. I think we won't have time to do more than read the issue description unless someone has looked at this before. So for the sake of the recording, this is issue 2912703. So that makes it a fairly old issue. Let's see, it's from 2017. Linked configuration edit form after config entity has been saved. I'm just reading the issue description. Currently, when you save a configuration entity, you might not be able to find it again easily. i.e., after you save a block, you will get the following message. The block configuration has been saved. If you had accessed the block configuration from the contextual links and adapted the visibility conditions, you are likely to not be able to adapt the block settings if the block doesn't show up on the screen anymore. Of course, you can still find it via the admin backend, but site admins might not even be aware of this path. And the proposal is similarly to content entities. It would be nice if the configuration entity save message would contain a link to the entity. As configuration entities don't have a canonical URL to be displayed, instead I would suggest a link I would suggest to add a link to the edit form. And then there are before and after screenshots. I'll open these in separate tabs so we can zoom in a little bit. And the before screenshot shows a status message. The block configuration has been saved. And I've often thought about how unhelpful that is. And the proposal is to add a link. The site branding block configuration has been saved. So even if you don't use the link, this is telling you which block has been saved. That's already an improvement.
So as a use case for this, if you clicked on configure beside the site branding, and then you made some edits there and clicked save, you return to this page with the status message.
So let's see, configuration
Is it? I think it
system,
might be.
the basic
Sorry,
site settings is what you're thinking of?
I thought it was block placement, was it? So is it in a
So block placement is
structure block
what the
layout?
issue uses as an example. I thought you were suggesting a different
Yeah, I was
place.
just asking if that's, so if you went to configure in language switcher, for example, and click configure, just see if this is how you tick display the title, or maybe just
Sure.
click save. Does that take you back to the previous screen with that error with that message? Yeah. So that's how you get there.
Yeah,
So
and also maybe the most common use case, maybe go to the front page of the site.
So yeah,
And then use the contextual for anything that
if you edit the language switcher again, so hover over language switcher, you should get the edit block.
hang on a minute.
Context.
I have to get the zoom windows out of the way. And then the language switcher is over here. Here's the contextual link.
Figure block.
And the
Yeah,
specific example was, what is it, front or home? I think it's front. If you hide it on the home page and save the block, then you get the status message. But now I've removed it, so I can't even get to it from the contextual link.
I'm with you. Yeah. Okay.
Um, so that seems to me like an improvement.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. The other use case wasn't so helpful, but that one certainly was from the homepage, removing it from the homepage, and then you've lost it.
Yeah, and I think even on the block placement page, some
It's
sites have a whole lot of blocks, right?
yeah.
So even though it is somewhere in this list, um, having a link in the status message.
But it might be on the different theme even. So that makes it even more difficult.
Of course, yeah, because you might go in and you might look at
Yes.
the gin theme and you've just removed it from the Umami uh, demo page. Hmm.
So let's see. Seems like a fairly simple change. So why do we have nearly 4 dozen comments on it? Um,
I wonder if it's because it's been back and forth with a lot of reviews, a lot of updates, a lot of merge requests have been updated.
right. So the recent comments are from DrupalCon Nara, so probably some novice contributors were working on this at the mentored contribution event. Um, so the other thing I like to do is search for um, who added the tag for needs usability review. Um, and somehow Firefox is not showing the text that I'm searching for. But anyway, here. Um, so almost 3 years ago, um, S. Musgrave added the tag for needs usability review. Seems like an excellent feature. No new functions and nothing to type in. Tests have been updated. I don't think such a feature would need a change record. Tagging for usability review as it is a UI change. Um, so
I think yeah, if it's just looking for a thumbs up, I would give it. It looks like a sensible feature to add. Assuming that the link returns you to the block that was just edited. And in the theme that was just edited as well.
yeah, usually I don't think every single change to the user interface needs a usability review.
Mhm.
Um, and maybe in the time since then, S. Musgrave has learned that and doesn't routinely add the tag. Um, and then someone was working on it at DrupalCon Barcelona a little over a year ago. Um, Comments on the merge request, more work on the merge request. All right, so the current status is needs review. So after whatever work has been done, it should get a code review. I think we can easily just comment on the issue.
We could probably remove the needs usability review as well. Take that tag off and say this was reviewed.
Yes. Yeah, generally we do that when we review an issue unless we want to continue the conversation.
Hmm.
But in this case, as you said, we're just giving a thumbs up to it overall. So we can do that and remove the tag. And who knows? I might even have time to do the code review. Sometime over the next couple of days. Okay, so we have just a few minutes left in the hour. Um, anything you'd like to say? Any closing remarks?
It's nice to get 2 tickets kind of finished.
Yeah, it's not often that we can look at an issue we've never looked at before and deal with it in 10 or 15 minutes. Okay, then. I'll stop my screen share. Thanks all for coming.
Thank you.
Um, just one thing. I like to take a screenshot of the participants window so I remember who deserves issue credit. Okay. Again, thanks for coming, and I'll be here next week. Hope you can make it again.
Thank you.
I can't make it. I'll be with a client, but have a nice weekend and next week as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Bye.
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 Bye bye.